Hey, everybody. On the Run with Beards and Dunn is back. And we have a guest today. But before we get to our guest, Beards, what's the latest with your knee?
Okay, well, we're recording this on October 30th. So in 2 days, so November 1st, tomorrow I go all the way down to Sioux Falls, your hometown,
Yeah.
and I meet with my surgeon tomorrow. You know, I've been 2 months now with a big block of cement in where my knee used to be. They took out the old knee. And then on Friday morning, I've got to be to the hospital at 6:30, and they'll put in this new knee. And then I can start moving forward. You know, for 2 months now, done. I've been basically laying in a recliner chair 90% of the time. I can't put any weight on it. You know, I have to use crutches or a walker. So as hard as I know the rehab's going to be, because I've lost all my muscle in my left leg, you know, the quad.
Yeah.
I'm so looking forward to the challenge and just to be able to get back up on my own 2 feet again.
I relate to you, Beards. You know, it'll be 6 weeks this Thursday since my bike crash.
Has it been that long already?
It has. And, you know, I'm better every day. But, man, you know, I went out today and raked some leaves. And I found out that I can rake in one direction real well, but not in the other direction with the beam. But yeah, it's better. And so we can't, you know, neither one of us, I hope, we only complain.
No. Well, I got to ask you though,
But
you were a week or so ago, you were saying November 1st,
yes,
I'm getting on the bike. Are you still, is that still in your plan?
Yeah, I got my new bike. And
so we both got two big things happening on November 1st.
It's not like we have things in common, but other than, okay. Our guest today, I'm
excited.
I am too. You know, Mike Beeman, Beeman, and if you know, he's a Mike, so I knew I was going to like this guy right away. But I was at the SAC conference. It's for Division II. Our conference at Mars Hill University is in, and I went down to the hotel lobby. We were waiting for some food. Our head coach, went to Olive Garden and got some food to bring back for the runners. So I was kind of just hanging out, trying to save a table for our team when they get down here. And I saw a young coach sitting there, and his name is Kevin Eagle, and he's the coach at Anderson University. And just, I don't know what it is. You know, he's a Christian guy, and for some reason you can tell, and Mike's the same way. They have an attraction about him. And I think that's just, you know, Christian people, you can almost, I just had a feeling that this is a good dude. And I'm a talker, and Kevin seemed to be a talker. We struck up a conversation, and next thing you know, he's telling me about Mike Beeman. And because I explained I'm a volunteer coach. He goes, we have a volunteer coach too, and his name's Mike Beeman. You guys have got to meet, because he goes, and he told me this. And at first I kind of thought, well, I don't know if I believe this. He goes, Mike Beeman has ran 47 consecutive Boston marathons. Beards, how many Boston marathons do you have under your belt?
I ran one in 1982, and then 10 years later, they brought Salazar and I back out there. And I remember a couple days before the race, I ran into Dave McGilvery, and he says, "Hey, Dick," he goes, "Listen, if you want to run on Monday, you know, you can have a number and stuff." And I was back then I was in my low 40s, so I was training pretty good, you know, for the Masters thing, and, you know, running marathons in the, you know, a little under 3 hours. And I said, well, gosh, I'm going to do a long run on Sunday anyhow. What the heck? Might as well. And I'll never forget this. Dave says, well, you can ride up on the elite bus. I said, nope. I said, I'm going in with the regular Joes on the regular bus. So I get up there, and I'm in about the third or fourth corral. And the gun goes off, and I swear it took half a day to get to the starting line. And then for the first mile, I felt like I was running like a penguin. There were so many people around me. I could hardly move my arms. And my goal was if I could break 3 hours. And I felt good through about 20. And then that last little bit, I was struggling big time. But I might have told this story once before. So, and Mike, both Mikes know this. When you come off of Commonwealth Avenue, you turn onto Hereford Street. So we're getting close to the finish now. So I turn onto Hereford Street, and I'm looking at my watch, and I'm thinking, this is going to be close. But when I turned, it was the craziest thing. The closest runner in front of me was about 30 yards away. And I remember looking back, and then the next closest runner behind me was about the same distance. And when I turned that corner, I flashed back to that day in 1982, and for a split second, I thought I was winning the gosh dang Boston Marathon. And then reality hit home, and I ended up running. I broke through. I ran 2:58:50 or something like that. But that's the only 2 times I've ever been to Boston to run.
You're one ahead. I've got my one in 1983, and it's my personal best marathon. And when people say I've run 11, and I think I've run about 7. I've done a few same course twice, but what's your favorite marathon? Well, that's not a no. That's a no brainer for me. Is Boston, and I think most runners who have run Boston will tell you that it's just special. And so I'll always have that memory in my mind. It's like you said, I can remember parts of that race I'll never forget. And so, just having that one time under my belt, I'm really glad I did it. But I heard about a dude who had done 47 in a row.
Oh my gosh.
And then he goes on to tell me about Dave McGilvery. You just mentioned him. He's the race director for the Boston Marathon. I did not know this till Mike Beeman, our guest, which we are going to let you speak in a minute, Mike. He told me they went to college together. They were college teammates.
Merrimack College.
Merrimack College.
Well, Mike Beeman, I'm super excited. We had a chance to talk just one time, and it didn't take me but a second to think, well, I'm going to quick text Dick and ask him if this would be something he'd be like interested in, because I sure was. And Dick goes, oh, of course.
You bet.
Anybody, I think every runner's dream, if you're a marathoner, is to try to get to Boston. Can you remember? Let's go back in time. How about giving us a little background on your running?
Yeah.
Did you run in junior high, high school? Were you a 4-sport letterman? What's the story?
Well, I guess I was the traditional athlete in high school. So, I started out and I was basketball, baseball, and football as a freshman. And I was a pretty good quarterback, and I didn't like getting hit. So the basketball coach, when I was a freshman, said, you need to be in better shape. And he says, next year you should run cross country. And so I lost probably 20 pounds between freshman and sophomore year of high school. And I went from not running to being, a pretty good cross country runner. My sport was basketball. I got recruited to play at Merrimack, which is Division II. So I went to school as a basketball player, and I was heavier. I was muscular, and entered Merrimack College coming out of high school as a decent runner, but not a great runner. And then when I went to Merrimack, I was, running preseason. We had to run a 2-mile time trial, and I ran 9:54. And the basketball coach says, you're in the wrong sport, pal, but we're going to keep you on the team. And that's when I met Dave, and he ran the Boston Marathon in 1976, and I went to watch him at that point in time. And I says, I'm never going to watch this thing again. So I'm sorry, 77 when Jerome Drayton won it. I said, I'm never going to watch it again. I'm going to train. I'm going to qualify. And so my senior year of basketball, 2 weeks before the season started, I went down to New Jersey and qualified, and then played the entire season, ran maybe 30 miles all winter, and then went to Boston in 1978 and ran 2:58 and change.
Oh, that's something.
That is.
So Dave, or Mike, what did you have to back then? What did you have to run to qualify for Boston at that point? Do you remember?
3 hours. 3 hours.
3 hours.
So I just, and it's amazing, since I was a basketball player first and running in Nike Nylon Cortez, qualifying, and then running it. And the day before Boston, I had some all-star basketball game, and I played in it.
Not real good for your taper, right?
No, and I scored a lot of points. I played the whole game, and then went down and ran Boston. So now I have a tough time just getting out of bed, but still.
I hear you.
But Dave McGilvery and I have been friends all these years. And he told me once, he said, I remember you in college, because he graduated a couple of years before me. So he says, you were in college, you were kind of stocky, you're big and muscular. Then I see you a few years later and you're blowing by me in a 10-mile road race. He said, that's not fair. But our friendship is solid, and he's a great testimony to perseverance. And he's
absolutely.
He just finished the Ironman. He just did.
I saw that.
Just did Kona. Wow. So we have a link there.
So you ran your first Boston in 77, and you finished and felt what? Like, Did you say I'm gonna do it again, or do you said like most people, I'm never gonna do that? What was? Do you
Oh,
remember?
I do remember I qualified in 77. I ran in 78. And when I got
Okay.
back to college, um, you know, I just didn't know what I was going to do. And I got hooked, obviously, and wanted to get better. And then the qualifying time went down the next year. So I had to run 250. So
Wow.
I just ran 245 or something like that. And then it stayed that way for a while. So I had to have all those sub 250s. And when Dick and Al dueled it out in 82, I had my PR at Boston, 237 and change.
Nice.
And a few years back, this involves Dick. The Boston Globe interviewed me for 2013, the bomb year. They
Yeah.
interviewed me, because I was coming back from an injury, but I was coming back to Boston. And they said, the duel in the sun, Al Salazar and Dick Beardsley, did you see them? And I says, yeah, I saw them. And then the gun went off.
Well, oh, good memories.
So
Yeah.
the 250, I know they kind of they kept tightening the qualifying to try to keep the field at a reasonable size. I don't know what the rationale was, but then as years went on, it started to raise a little bit. Do you remember how that process worked?
Well, what actually happened is after the duel in the sun, in 82, what happened is a lot of the big majors started evolving and they were offering money. And Boston didn't offer money.
No.
So 83, 84, 85. So Jeff Smith won it in 84 and 85. I was with Converse at the time, and Jeff ran for Converse.
Okay.
As did Paul Cummings, and we had some good athletes. And everybody was backing out for appearance money. And in 86, they offered money, and Rob DiCastella came to Boston, and of course I believe he set the course record. But fun fact about that race: when Rob won it in '86, I think he ran a second or two faster than you guys, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah.
So he might have broke it by a second, but he fell at the start. He fell.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They forgot to take up the rope. The rope.
I remember that dang rope.
Yeah, and so they let it, and he tripped and he fell, and I passed him. And I tried to grab him, and he was saying some nice words, and he got up, and I think his knees were skinned up, and he went out and he blew by everybody, including me, and he broke the record at that point in time. So that's a fun fact.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, for me, I've seen it go from amateur to professional to, the field expanding, contracting. Then now it's, I hear people complaining that it's an elitist group, so on and so forth. But it's hard to have 25,000 people run those small little towns and so forth. It's a logistical thing. Actually, it's 30,000 because they have the charity runners. But
well, and Mike, it was a lot tougher to qualify for Boston back in the early days when you were running it than it is now. I mean, granted, it's still, you got to, do some really good training, but it was a lot tougher back then.
Yes, and I think people either they trained for Boston and qualified. There was no slow runners back then. It was just, the Boston Marathon was over in less than 3.5 hours because nobody ran over 3.5 hours.
That's right.
Boom. And so that's the way it was. And the younger generation doesn't realize what the pioneers were doing. But one thing I was telling Mike that the great and late Johnny Kelly, he finished 59 Boston marathons.
Wow.
But he only had 3 different strings because he dropped out of 3 because he was losing. Like he was in second or third place. He wasn't feeling good. So I think he had a 25, a 15, and a 19 or something like that. So he was 59 for 62. That's not bad. Wow. And
no. So Mike, are you? So is Dave McGilvery? Is he kind of the one that's run the most? And are you right behind him? Or is there anybody else up in that neighborhood?
Dave's number 1. Dave's number 2. Mark Bowman is number 1. He lives in, I want to say it's Chicago, but I'm not sure. He has 54. Then it's David, and then there's a guy by the name of Dan Larson, who's one ahead of me, and the guy in third he's got a very odd name, Ludwig Cap or something like Von Cap. It's a very unusual name, but we're all five marathons apart, and of course, there's a lot of people. There's a list. There's an Excel spreadsheet of 121 people who've done 25 or more consecutive.
Or more.
And
So do you get with running Boston that many times? Please tell me they give you a free entry at least. Do they give you a free entry?
No, Dick, they don't.
No.
They don't make us qualify, and they allow us to start in the second corral.
Oh.
So I have no problem with paying for it because I get way more out of it than I just absolutely love it. It's a love affair for me. That's where I'm from. I don't live there anymore, but it's a big deal for me.
So I got to ask you, Mike. So now as you get up there, as each year comes up and as we get older, injuries are a little more, if you get one, they seem to last longer. It takes longer to recover from runs and races. Do you feel that pressure each year? I got to get on that start line and finish.
Yes, I do. And what I call my running now, I call it sustainable. So I've gone to a modified version, probably over the last 10 years, the Galloway method, but I have my own method. It's the easiest thing for me to go 1-to-1. 1 minute running, 1 minute walking. That way I don't get injured. And if something does hurt, I just back off. I do, because really my only race I want to run is Boston. That's the only thing. Yeah. And I think they give us, I think we have to finish it in under 6.5 hours to be, counted as a finish. And unfortunately, because there's guys in their late 70s and, finish in 7 hours, and it's like, see ya,
Yep.
and one of these days that's going to be me, I'm blessed to be able to run, 47. If I get 48, that's great. But there is a little pressure because when Boston Marathon comes around that time of year, all of a sudden I get emails and texts and Facebook messages from people I don't even know. So I was almost sheepish to tell Mike, because I'm so slow now. I'm not embarrassed by it. I'm proud of it, but it's like,
Oh, Mike, I know people. Of course I haven't been able to run the last 2 months, but my plan is to get back to it. But like I tell people, if I ran any slower, I'd be going backwards now. But like you, I still love getting out there, and I run about 5 miles every day, and like I said, it's slower than molasses in January. But and like you, I saw in one of your bios or something that. You like to run in the morning, you get that run in before you go to work, and it energizes you. And I remember back in my faster days, I'd always would run twice a day, but I always did my hardest and longest workouts in the morning for 2 reasons. One is, most of the races start in the morning. So I wanted to get my body used to running hard or long. But secondly, if something would come up later in the day where I couldn't get it in, at least I got that one really good run in. So we kind of go by the same rules there pretty much.
Yes. And I was telling Kevin Eagle, I said, I would rather be in the position, I was never in both of your categories, like as far as the speed goes, but I'm glad I'm still able to do it. Like I talked to Jeff Smith, just had surgery, and he's been up and down with injuries and stuff like that. He hasn't been able to run. Rod Dixon looks like he's 30 years old.
I know.
Have you seen Rod?
My gosh. I've been good friends with Rod for years. And the last time I saw him in person, we were both at the marathon over in, not Vancouver, but, Victoria, the British in Victoria, the Victoria Marathon. And the guy is like, anytime my wife sees him in person or sees a picture, she just like melts. The guy's like the best looking guy in the world.
He is.
We had him.
He looks great. He's nice too.
You couldn't find a nice guy. Yeah, tell him, Mike.
We had him on our podcast here a few months ago. So look back into the archives and you'll find Rod Dixon. It was such a joy. I grew up idolizing that dude. He was just a phenom. Him and John Walker were just like the dynamic duo. and they were traveling all over Europe running track races. And when he made the transition to the road, I don't know what the record is. At the time, his range from 800 to the marathon is on. And that New York victory of his with Jeff Smith is just, it's almost as good as the Duel in the Sun, but nobody will be that good. But we connected with Rod, and he was 17 hours ahead of us when we did and so he was down in New Zealand. And, he just had a zest and a joy about him. Just, I don't know if that's an Aussie attitude. They just kind of take, and they're enjoying every day that God blesses you with. You should do that. You should make the most out of everything. But anyway,
no, go ahead.
I do have another question. Though. I read in a bio somewhere here about you about running across the state of New Hampshire, and you did a fundraiser, and it's like, I think your family was involved. Tell us a little bit about what was that? How many miles a day, and all that sort of thing.
Well, what I did is when my daughter was born in 1996, I pushed her in a stroller. And, she'd take a nap and so on and so forth. And I would do 8, 10, 12. I'd do my long ones, pushing her in a stroller. And it was like a condominium on wheels. Like it had air conditioning and everything. And that summer of 97, I said, it would be nice to raise money for Make-A-Wish. Because I had a friend who lost his son. And he was so dedicated to Make-A-Wish. I can't imagine losing a child. So I said, next summer, I'm going to run from the top of New Hampshire. Across New Hampshire is like 70 miles, but top to bottom is 248. So I went, and my wife at the time, we're no longer together, but she's a very, very good friend, very supportive. She says, that's a great idea. So I said, I'm going to go 30 miles a day. I'm going to push Melanie in a stroller from top to bottom. So I started training and so on and so forth. And there was no internet. So I sent out letters and said, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to raise the money for Make-A-Wish. Make-A-Wish thought I was crazy. They said, when you sign on the dotted line, if you don't do it, you're going to have to pay us $4,000.
Wow.
That's a wish. So I went to the, got donations, so on and so forth. But before we left, we only had like $800 in the bank account. So we go to the top of New Hampshire. And I figured there'd be bands playing and there'd be news stations and stuff. No, it was just the border guard. And so I started out, and the first day I ran 39 miles pushing her, and nobody joined me. Nobody. And then it went on to the front page of the New Hampshire Union Leader, which is the state newspaper. The second day, a couple of people came out. Third day, I started feeling like Forrest Gump. People were handing us $100 bills, so on and so forth.
Wow.
So I finished the thing in 8 days, right? And we were invited to a AAA baseball game in Nashua, New Hampshire, so I could throw out the first pitch. And they said, for every fan that is there, we're going to give you, I think it was $1 for every fan that was there. And it was $1,500. So it was $1,500. So we ended up raising a little over $23,000.
Wow.
And so then I did it again after my son was born. We did it in 2002. And we beat the total by like $40,
Cool.
We granted 12 wishes. So it was nice to take my passion and actually help, a child that ultimately would pass away. And it was very humbling, but that to me was my greatest accomplishment, as far as running goes.
I had goosebumps when I hear, you started with $800 in the bank, and on faith alone, and just trust. And I think that's a great story of, sometimes,
wonderful story.
I had a good friend, Jenny Stinson. It said, "Leap and the net will appear." I don't know if that's always true, but in your case, that's awesome.
When this will give you chills. When I got back home, we didn't have, what do you call it, Venmo and these direct deposits. So I went to the post office. I had a PO box, and I walked in, and I was like, I'm gonna empty my PO box. And I looked in the PO box. There's nothing.
Oh.
And I was crushed. I go, oh my gosh. And the postmaster comes out and he goes, Mike, I'm glad you're here. He brings out a box and it's filled with envelopes. And we had a check counting party for like 2 days,
Wow.
taking in the letters. I still have all the letters, from people. There were some people that thought, they didn't believe in Make-A-Wish, but they believed in me, and I thought that was pretty good. But it was a great experience. And it was, I've documented. I have the traditional scrapbooks with pictures. I have a journal and so on and so forth. But it was just a great experience.
That's awesome. How many miles do you have? I think I know the answer. How many miles do you think you've accumulated in training?
147,121. Because I knew you would ask. I write everything down.
I saw somewhere it was written that you had. I don't know if meticulous is the right word. That's pretty meticulous when you know it to the mile.
Wow,
that's awesome. I do the same thing with my cycling. I'm going to be hitting. I'm going to get I'm going to get 250,000 before I get done, and I'm well over 200,000. And so it's fun. It's just one of those little personal things that kind of get you out of bed.
Well, you can also look back and see what was going on in
yes.
1982 before the Boston Marathon, how I was feeling. In that marathon, it would probably be discouraged now, but I paced Julie Isfording.
I remember Julie.
Yeah, from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah.
So she was trying to, I can't remember the circumstances. It wasn't anything to do with the Olympics, but she wanted a PR. And she knew I was going to run in the 2:30s. But unfortunately, she got blisters around right before the Newton Hills, and she had to drop back. So she only ran like 2:41, and I ended up with 2:37. But it was a little warm that day.
Yeah, a little bit.
What place woman was she? When you were pacing her, I just know the women get, and the fans at Boston are like no other in that they're so knowledgeable, and they cheer everybody. But when the women, the first woman came by, I ran with Joan Benoit that year when she ran 2:22, and I was ahead of her there with a friend, and we could hear the roar of the crowd. And we would turn to each other and go, "Oh my God, she's right behind us." You could kind of tell where Joni was, but did you find the same kind of thing? Or
well, yes, because she was one of the top women. She was in the top 5 when I was running with her, and It was extremely fun to run next to her. But some of the men back then were very sexist. I remember in particular, we're going through Framingham, and you didn't have all the aid stations you do now. They were like 55 miles. So somebody handed a guy, he had a cup of water, and she goes, "Are you going to can I get some of that water?" And he took it, looked at her, and he just dumped it out. And he goes, "Every man and woman for themselves."
Oh my goodness!
And
I tell you, that's rough.
I had some words for this. You talk about women. In 1980, I was running through down Kenmore Square, and I heard a huge, roar in front of me. And about good half mile, maybe 1,000 meters in front of me was what I thought was the first woman. And you know who it was? 1980?
Let's see, Patty Catalano?
Not Rosie Ruiz or somebody
else. Rosie Ruiz. Rosie Ruiz.
Right.
And I finished, and I gained so much that I was almost. And if you're going 6-minute miles and you gain that amount of distance,
right.
She was probably going 12-minute mile, and she had these gym shorts, yellow shirt on with piping and said MCI on it. And I was mad. I told
did you have a feeling, Mike, that this is not legit?
Oh yeah. I was telling my brother, I was not feeling good because it was a little warm, and I had chafing and stuff. I was bleeding and stuff. And I was like, she didn't run the whole thing.
Well, Bill Rogers once told me, because he won it that year, and him and Rose were up on the podium, and he raised her arm up, and he said it was just his flab just going back and forth on her backside of her arm. And I feel so bad for Jacqueline Garreau, who actually won it. And Jacqueline, I've known her forever. And yes, they brought her back and they kind of gave her the ritual of being on the podium, but it's nothing like getting that laurel wreath, being on that podium on the day when you actually win it.
Yeah. And that's, with technology now, obviously you would have a check system, but back then it was like this.
No.
Boom, 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 a clipboard, the top 100 men, top 100 women, they would just boom, boom, boom. And if you weren't those checkpoints, you're out. And I bet you there was a lot of cheating back then because
it wouldn't surprise me.
It just
This
had
is going
to be,
so good.
There was no accountability there, but yeah, that was a good 1980 story.
Yeah.
Now, to bring us up to speed, because you told me a little bit about it, and I'm not a TikTok guy, but I heard this, and you were kind of explaining to me and about the colleges in Boston, and you came up with this idea. Fill us in on what that was all about.
Well, in college, I used my degree at Merrimack College. I majored in business, and I have a degree in accounting, but also marketing. I worked with Converse in marketing. Then I had a retail store, and so I'm a marketer. And after, I think it was 33 years, I finally figured out I don't have to qualify anymore. So I decided, I think it was 2011 or so. I said, I'm going to just have fun and enjoy it. So I made a custom made tank top that said, I love Wellesley College on it with a big heart in the middle. I was like Justin Bieber at a high school concert,
Tell people why Wellesley why that would be important.
Well, it's the all-women's school,
All-women's
Dick
school.
was going too fast by it, so he wasn't getting.
I was.
They
girls,
kiss
the co-eds
everybody.
are,
They kiss,
the co-eds
right.
they scream.
So
yeah,
I decided I was going to have some fun, and I was extremely popular in that group. Well, that went well. So the next year I decided, because when I got to Boston College, it's a much bigger group of kids at Boston College. I mean, that stretches a good mile at least, and they are loud, they're drunk, and they're fabulous. So I decided, I think it was in the last probably 7 years, I wore one underneath that said, I love Boston College.
Good plan.
I get to Boston College and I have the top that says I love Wellesley College on it, but I cut it. And so I get it, and I say to the Boston College kids, I go, do you love Wellesley College? And they're like, yeah. And I said, how about this? And I rip it off. And it says, I love Boston College.
Oh, they must have went nuts.
They did. And so I made a TikTok out of that, and it streamed pretty well. And then I've made a couple finish line videos. And you're talking to somebody that didn't have a cell phone until 4 years ago. So the TikTok I made this year at the finish line went completely viral. I ended up selling it to some organization called Catch and Release, and they use it for inspiration, because 47 Boston marathons, but it's terrible quality. I mean, I'm holding it in my left hand, I'm drooling,
Tell us how many views did it have, and then how many views does it have now?
It's over 10 million.
Holy
smokes! But they capped it after I sold it, which is fine. But I didn't care because they paid me for it. But now I just.
Well, Mike, so go back to 2013, the year of the bombing. So where were you? Obviously, you'd already finished, I would think, or close to it.
No, I was close.
Wait till you hear this.
Tell us about 2013 and the bombing there at Boston.
Well, 2013 wasn't funny, but a lot of people forget this. I went through some surgery similar to you guys. I had a quadricep rupture. I had fallen and the tendons broke completely. So that would happen on Labor Day of 2012. So I didn't run for 3-4 months, no running, and went through rehab, so on and so forth. So Boston Marathon was, kind of a little nerve-wracking. So my daughter, who was a junior in high school, says, well, I'm going to go up with you to make sure you're safe. And I says, it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. So we go up in 2013, and she goes along the course with a former student of mine from New Hampshire, and he drives her. He knows all the places. So we see her. I see her in Ashland. I see her in I think Natick. See her in Newton. Then I saw her the last time on Heartbreak Hill. We took a picture. Right. And that picture ended up in the Boston Globe the next day. So at Heartbreak Hill, I go, sweetheart, I'm going to take it easy. I'm just going to take my time. So I said, they weren't going to be at the finish, but they were going to be at a hotel in Copley off, in the back bay section. And I said, I'll see you there. So I went through Kenmore Square. I get to the corner of Comm Ave in Hereford, and they just drove the fences up. They took the fences and they just put them in the middle. They just closed it, and they go, the race is over. But before that happened, there was runners running towards me. And I was telling Mike, I was kind of upset. Like, are you cooling down? Like, what? Were you making a mockery of the marathon? And then that's when I heard that the bombs went off. So I went into hysteria because I, for some reason, thought my daughter was going to be at the finish line. I thought there was buildings down. I didn't know what was going on.
No.
Nobody did. And so I'm in that picture that they put in Sports Illustrated where it's like the underpass. They moved us back on the underpass, and we just had to stand there. So me being from that area, I climbed over one of those fences and went up on Boylston Street, and it was awful. And as soon as I got up there to Boylston Street, after seeing all the carnage and everything, the police officers started screaming at us to move because there was a threat of another bomb.
Oh my God.
So I'm walking down Hereford, and nowhere to lie, I looked up in the sky. I had a tank top, shorts. I had nothing warm. And I look up in the sky. I says, God, what do you want me to do now? And I saw these 4 kids, looked like college kids, walking into a building, which was really weird because there's no housing or anything. It's just a building, but it was an apartment building on Hereford. And I said, do you mind me asking you guys, where are you going? And they go, this is our apartment. So they invited me in, and which may have saved me because I was freezing. So they gave me a blanket. They had, I think, beer, ketchup, and bread in the refrigerator. And they wouldn't let me leave until I got through to my daughter, which I did. And I got through to my friend, and they were up in Wilmington, Mass. They just went straight out of the city. So now it's an hour and a half later. I had to get to Wilmington. So I walked out on Beacon Street, put my thumb out, thumbed the South Station, which I thought was brilliant because South Station has buses and everything, but that was closed down. So I said to a police officer, I said, sir, if you don't mind, how can I get to Wilmington, Mass? I have no money. I have no family. How can I get there? He flagged down a cab, and he says, this is a state of emergency. Take this gentleman to Wilmington, Mass right now. And he did. And
wow, that just gave me shivers.
You know, it was just so many miracles in that whole thing. And I told the cab driver to stay, and I was going to go. I got my wallet, and I think I gave him $50 because that was the best cab ride I ever had in my life. And I had no phone on me, so it was just the chaos was unbelievable. And I was fortunate because they took your time where you were, and they extrapolated it, and they made it so that, you know, you got a finishing time. So if you were in that 4.5 to 4:40 range, which I was, you were probably right in the thick of things, and I was. So. But if I hadn't have stopped and taken the pictures with my daughter, I could have been a little bit further up. And I always run down the left-hand side of Boylston Street. Always. I'm always on the left-hand side, and that's where the bombs went off.
Yeah. So, Mike, did you hear any of the explosions at all, or were you too far out yet?
No, I think, you know, because I had gone under the underpass, and I remember there was a lot of rumbling, but I don't know if that was like cars going over it. I don't know. I don't know. There was a lot of smoke when I went up there. I can tell you that. And it just smelled awful. It was just it was bone chilling.
Oh, I tell you this, I'm looking down. I hate to tell you this, Mike. I'm
looking
at the clock. We're coming up on 40 minutes already. Kind of to wrap it up. You know, you've got a lot of wisdom. You've got years of coaching under your belt. You're a volunteer coach. You and I, Mike said it before I said it, because this is the best job in the world. You know, we're out there with youngsters that are enthusiastic. They look to me, I don't know about you, Mike, they think I'm so full of wisdom. I think that just comes with gray hair, I guess. But anyway, I'm really enjoying it, but I don't have the pressure that the coach is under, you know, to really be responsible, you know, for all the logistics and what, you know, I try to help out with whatever I can, and timing mostly, and just talking to the kids. I'm loving it. Any life lessons that you'd want to, you know, that you try to, I know you've got some. I read a quote by you, and you discipline yourself before somebody else has to. Is that something?
Yes, that's a famous John Wooden coach is discipline yourself before somebody else has to. And in that respect, if you're a lifetime fitness person, it's the only sport where you can keep going. You know, obviously I was a college basketball player, but after, you know, 1978, there was no 4 of the guys to play with, and there was no games to play unless you want to play a men's league. And every time I tried to, somebody would try to like undercut me or something.
Right.
Running is the only sport where you can keep going and doing it, you know, and going and going and going. And I think that's, I don't care. I told the high school kids that I coach, I don't really care. I do care about your PRs and stuff like that. But my biggest interest is when you're my age, you're still running and still loving,
Right.
and it depends on why you're running. If you're running to compete, to, do something and beat this person and that person, I just have always loved it. And I think we're all hard on ourselves and we didn't run in the time we wanted to, but I think that it's a lifetime journey, and that's how I feel. I look forward to get up in the morning, like tomorrow morning, I'm looking forward. We got nice trails here and I can go out on them and so on and so forth. And I'm slow, but I really don't care.
Well,
And
you and I are the same mindset. I'm the same way. I'm so slow, but I don't care. I tell you, when I run at about 3:00 in the morning, I get up real early. I'm a fishing guide, and so there's not a lot of people out. But if somebody saw me, I mean, they look at me and go, "My God, what's wrong with that guy?" I'm like a car with square tires. I just kind of go, but I still love it.
and that's what it's all about. And the funny thing is if they don't know who you are, like if somebody, that's the amazing part. Like, that's Dick Beardsley, I'd be like, oh my gosh, do you know who he is? Or Bill Rogers, same thing.
Right.
They go, but yeah, that old guy was fourth in his age group, and he's so on and so forth. But they don't realize, and they view you as you are now, as opposed to,
Oh yeah.
he was because kids ask me about my PRs, like, what did you run for this and that? And it's hard for them to fathom that. But
Right.
and I just said, I can't show you now. I can show you news. I can give you certificates. I can show you whatever you want to see, but I'm not going to bring it. I'm not going to bring it to the table because it's irrelevant. If I can't translate what I've experienced in running to a younger kid, then it's no good. Like, I don't care how fast you are. If you can't bring it to the younger generation.
Right.
I know we got time. I was fortunate to travel with Arthur Lydiard for 2 years, with Converse. And I learned more from that man.
I bet.
Arthur was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And that was a blessing for me. And his one thing that he always told me, he goes, I can't do his accent, but he goes, you Americans run too fast all the time.
Cool. Well, Mike, we can't thank you enough. And we want to thank everybody for listening today. And if you have any, or watching, if you have any questions for Dunn or myself, comments about the show, you can contact us directly at our website at beardsanddunpod.com, or you can leave us a comment on our Facebook, Instagram, or X, all at Beards and Dunn Pod.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, leave us a comment or please subscribe. We love to hear what people are thinking about the podcast. But again, Mike, I've got goosebumps because serendipitously we got to meet. The odds of our teams being at the same hotel, blah blah blah. And then I knew right away, and Dick and I sometimes get on before the guest. You guys got on before I did today, which is kind of unusual. And I usually tell Dick, you're going to love this. I was going to say, you're going to love this guy. He's one of us.
I know.
He's one of us.
I feel like I know you, Mike, and I just met you.
Well, we're 67 and 68, and you're right in there. I know, Mike. And so we're all from that generation. And I was so excited because when I met you, and you know what, I dropped Dick's name a lot because he, I'm really proud to be a friend of Dick Beardsley's. And, I think we all, once you meet Dick, you're a friend for life. And so many kids, I'll mention his name and they'll give me the deer in the headlight look, or Frank Shorter or Bill Rogers. And I told Coach Spence, I said, I need to propose a class at the university called the History of Running in the United States or
there
the
you go.
And come up with some curriculum because these kids are missing a lot of really great lessons from people that have gone before. And the coaches are doing their best. And I'm just happy that people like you, Mike, are willing to step up and assist in that process. So thanks. I look forward to seeing you. You're going to be in Spartanburg, correct?
Yes, I'll be at Spartanburg.
We'll be there Saturday for 2 weeks for our regional Beards. So
all right,
we'll talk about you. We'll talk
about
you
guys. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks, guys. Mike, thanks so much. It was a great interview with you today.
Thanks, Dick. Good to see you in person.
Have a great day, you guys.
You know what I mean.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Very good.